Welcome to the Aussie Game podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. Going to mix it up a bit this evening. Going to keep it pretty casual, aren't we, Mopper? Just going to throw some questions backwards and forwards and talk about some Australian football.
Yeah, absolutely, and can't wait to get into it. Lots of exciting stuff overnight, and Chief, I've got a couple of intros for you, mate. Now, Michael Jackson, or Michael the movie, is in cinemas in April, the King of Pop. But have we seen our own rock star? Didn't we see his stature and importance grow in this side? Hey, Michael Jackson, Nestor Irankunda showing off his dance moves last night to Michael Jackson with One Glove theme song. It was rock and roll, or was it Thriller? What was it, mate? I got quite excited when the glove come out.
Oh, I love the theatrics, and I love the way that Nestor plays with a smile on his face. How good was it? I had a question for you, though. I know you're pretty good on the dance floor. Have you ever pulled out a moonwalk in the middle of the dance floor?
Oh, I can't do that. I can't. I'm not that good. I just have a bit of fun. But yeah, no. Look, I hope some of Michael's songs rub off on Irankunda. There's some Thriller. I'd love to see a bit of a Thriller Irankunda in the World Cup, or Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. What do you reckon? I just reckon Rock With You. Like, there's so many, mate. The way you make you feel, I'm super pumped. Didn't he bring some atmosphere to the Socceroos last night? And I've got some stats on him that I've been watching over his last 12 months. It's been a really good rise for him and a really good move when he went over to Watford. It's really starting to show, isn't it?
Well, in the commentary last night, Robbie Thompson threw the who's bad out there, but it was more about who was really good, because he, along with McGree and Bos, completely changed the game for the Socceroos last night. So my question to you, first off the bat, is why did we only see Nestor Irankunda in spits and spurts off the bench across these two games?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Look, his team Watford just sit outside the playoffs. He's only just cracked back into the starting 11. Does that play a part? Is there a coach agreement? We know this is a real difficult window where we've seen a lot of international friendlies actually players leave camp, not Australians, but overseas going back. So I just wonder if there was an agreement in there around his fitness. Look, it is a bit of a surprise because prior to that 6 weeks starting, because he started his last couple, he hasn't had much game time. He's had bits and pieces off the bench when he had that little mid-season break there that he needed for his health. So it's a difficult one because we don't know the backhouse conversation. So I would assume that Watford would have requested something, and I think we've obliged. But I could possibly be wrong, but it's definitely one of the possibilities.
Any chance, and I hope this is not the case, and we know what an impact he can make off the bench, but any chance that Popovic is thinking that he'll start him on the bench and bring him on to impact a game late when defences are tiring?
Yeah, I did see that question come up with the fans that posted today, but you've got to look back at the last 12 months, and you've got to look at the goal scoring moments and who was around and who created and who finished. And Bos and Irankunda and Toure, but obviously he's excluded for these last two friendlies, were the three dominant players in the last 12 months from goal assists and goals. You only have to look at the goal he poached against Canada. He come on late against America, Irankunda, and he nearly scored in that, I think it was with a couple of minutes to go. You've seen him against New Zealand, how him and Toure ripped it up, and you've seen how he played against South America. So, look, I don't think you would start him on the bench. It does look good, but I think it's more man management and his proper system in the last 12 months. You've seen a lot of players that have been in and out and hasn't really started, apart from probably a core 3 or 4, like O'Neill, Sicardi. They're probably, the core contributors that we've seen 90 minutes consistently. But you haven't really seen any of the Socceroos over the last 12 months consistently play other than those really 2 or 3. So don't get caught up in the hype, I believe, in the last 12 months, because he is going to start if we want to win games. And you can only go back to the friendlies that he's played, and you've seen what damage he did against Canada. You've seen the trouble he gave America. Would you really leave a weapon like that off the bench if he's fully fit and ready to go for the World Cup? there is no chance I would leave a talent like that. He will be fit and ready to go for the World Cup. I think he is brimming for this show, and he loves the pressure. So I think it'd be a poor move, and I think Popper has no choice but to play his best. So, of course, I think he'll start.
What a difference, as I said before, that those three substitutes made last night, because it was pretty dour up until that point around the 60-minute mark, or I think they came on just after that. But yeah, made a huge impact. Bos down the left, pushing forward and finding those little pockets of space. Obviously, he scored that second goal to put Australia in front, and then McGree and obviously Irankunda really instrumental. But I think it probably highlighted our lack of depth, particularly in those attacking positions. We know we've got a couple of injuries, but really the players that started and even some of the options that were on the bench that either didn't get a lot of game time or no game time at all, it really showed, I think, that big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the golf, we've put the wide reach out to everybody in the last 12 months,
Almost
haven't we? And we've
everybody.
had that
Almost
luxury.
everybody.
Yeah, almost everybody. Good point. But like, I guess the question is, with that stretch, are we really settled on the core, probably 23 to 26 that are going? If you watch the games and clearly see who's performing at what level and managing and handling the international stage, there's pretty much a core group of 20 as far as I'm concerned. The question is, I think the looking's over. I think you've seen everybody now. You've seen a few players that come into this camp, which is a Jurek, although he was picked for the other game, but was injured. Mobile, obviously, Suto we didn't get to see. Valupile's back after the injury to the first half of the international calendar after the World Cup qualifiers. We've seen a little bit of Lucas Harrington. Unfortunately, we haven't seen Karadzic due to injury being absent 3 times. So, and you've seen the return of Aziz Behich. So Robertson again, it was picked for that America Canada, but didn't see any game time, but seen a little bit of game time this time. So I think we've seen enough. The question is now, can we lock what we see that 23-26 looks like? And I think when you've seen that first 60 so minutes, it does show a bit of golf of the gap, doesn't it? And my question to you is, are you clear-minded on what the squad should look like going forward? And do you think Popper is?
Well, I do think realistically that when we're playing in tournament football, that you only end up using probably 18, 19 maximum players throughout the tournament. And I know that, to go all the way in this tournament, being the extended World Cup, it's going to be 8 games. But realistically, we're looking at 4, 5 maximum games, you would think, as much as I want the Socceroos obviously go on and win the whole thing. So can we manage can we manage 16, 17, 18, 19 players through 4 or 5 games? Yeah, we can. So really, the the extent, and I think you can lock that many players in, and you have strength in depth in enough spots there, and then the rest are young, potentially going for the experience, or older players that are mature around the squad that can kind of talk players through it. So I think realistically, let's say up to 20, I think you could lock pretty much 20 in. There's going to be a lot of debate, I think, around the sixes. There's probably about 7 of them that are going to try and fit into about 4 spots. So that's going to be a very challenging position. But other than that, I think we're pretty settled. Say if we take 7 in those front 3 positions, I think we're pretty settled in that respect. For who we would take, there might be 1 or 2 question marks. The back line, I think we've got some options there. I think across the middle, with Harrington coming in, that might be a toss of the coin whether he gets a look in. Obviously, Kai Truan's played a bit in this tournament. The right fullback spot's a really interesting one, I think. My assessment would be Italiano locked in there, but I said to you last night that the fact that when Karadzic goes down and Kai Rolls is the option into the squad shows me that he doesn't quite have the faith in an Aubrey or a Daniel Benny or even a Ryan Strain playing in Scotland. So I don't know, like it, yeah, does he just trust Trewin so much to put him out there, even though that's not his? We've seen versatility with Trewin, but to put him out there at right wing back and to pick him in a squad where he can cover multiple positions, I suppose. But yeah, interesting one. But I think that Popovic in his mind can probably lock in, as I said, probably 19 up to 20 players, and then it's just a matter of who the rest are that go and for what reason that they go.
Yeah, it's interesting your point around that right back, because if you look at our last 12 months, defensively, when we've conceded, it's been on the other side. So it's the left side that's conceding. America got through us. Curucao got through us. Canada nearly got through us. Well, they created many chances, just couldn't finish down that left-hand side of the fence inside left centre back. And the teams are beating us with pace. And that's something you've seen with Curucao again last night, how they scored that goal in that channel again. That's about the fourth or fifth time, and New Zealand even got down that left channel as well, created many opportunities but couldn't finish. So if I look how we're conceding, we're getting beat in behind, and it's just when we switch off a bit square at the back, which is quite strange when you're back five. But again, it's just those small moments. And when I look at the flip side of things, how we're creating and scoring goals, it's all through Bos, Irankunda and Turkiye with a little bit of McGree, if you go back to Japan, even setting up that goal. So that's those both sides of the pitch. But I think the question mark for me is only probably one for the goalkeeper, whether Joe Gauci is good enough to come back. And he's going to have a massive game in the FA Cup and to really launch himself into that last spot, because it really looks like these three are locks. But I still don't rule out Joe Gauci if he shows the form at a high level. Beach is probably the next generation, and I think Gauci is too. With Ryan, obviously, probably in his latter part of his career. The defenders, I think, are pretty secure. If you look at the last 12 months again, there was a period of 9 months where we played all those friendlies, and Degenak, Burgess, and Sicardi were the locks, and they were playing 90 minutes every game, hardly subbed, picked every tournament. It's only the latter part of the games that we've seen a little bit of variation, a little bit of testing with Kai Trewin, who played obviously against America as well, and a bit of Harrington. So, yeah, look, if Harrington goes, it'll be as a development player. I think, the only question I have is whether he takes the risk and takes a suitor. That'll depend on whether he can actually get back fit. But I think you're right about the right back, though. It's a problem, isn't it? Because Benny and Overy are the up-and-comers, but really haven't been really bought in, have they? Overy's been looked at, and Benny hasn't been selected, and is a dual nationality as well. So if it is, we've seen a centre back start on the left wing back. We've seen that back five have four centre backs in it. Maybe he does that with the right, like obviously you've seen on the right hand side with Kai Trewin. But you can see when we play the four centre backs, it doesn't work when we're playing against pace. And as I said, we've seen that throughout the friendlies that we've been actually beaten. So we do lack a bit of pace. We do have great height. We do have a good defensive block in there with the players that we have. But yeah, pace worries me. Probably Sicardi's probably the quickest, but he's on that inside right, but it's not where we've actually been beaten. Yeah, and then left back, well, Jordy Bos is just the outstanding left wing back, isn't he? And he's going to play a massive part in this tournament. So I only really have a question for Suter and who really is the backup, whether he takes a Guerrier or a Harrington young player. The midfield, you're right. You're probably right. But I would have thought if Yazbek was a chance, he would have played a lot more minutes in these last couple, but he really didn't get much game time, did he? Only a small amount against Cameroon, and we didn't even see him last night. So, and I would say the same for Robertson. And the big guns are coming back, aren't they? You've got Captain Fantastic to come back from St. Pauli, so he's going to be a lock for sure. Obviously, they've managed Jackson Irvine in this one, but yeah, McGree, Metcalf's been a stalwart. Aidan O'Neill's been a stalwart. So it really is who just backs them up. Do they go back to Max Ballard, or do they, look at Cam Devlin again, who's just been unlucky in this last period? And the forwards speak for themselves, don't they? Boyle's going, Irakunda's going, Turo's going. I think Valupale's a late shot. He does like Valupale. He has waited for him to come back. So the rest, I think there's only really one or two spots really open. in each position.
The left wing back spot's interesting because I agree we've been exposed there a couple of times, and from memory it was when Kai Rolls or Aziz Behich were in that position. But it's interesting as well when we play Geordie Bos there, and I saw a comment last night about the excitement of having Geordie Bos and Irankunda play down the same side. But I think that leads to defensive frailties as well. So I remember the New Zealand game. I think it was the first game in Canberra, when Geordie Bos was amazing, but Connor Metcalf played in that wide 10 on the left, so probably provided a bit more defensive cover, which allowed Bos to get forward. So it's an interesting balance that Popovic needs to find down that side as well. Obviously, in this game as well, and in the game against Cameroon, we saw Irankunda mainly play through the middle. So once Toure comes back, you'd assume that means Irankunda is going to shift out to either one side or the other. But it's an interesting point around Irankunda and where he's actually going to play through the team. Obviously Toure is going to be back and he's going to start. But then, what option do we have for Irankunda, and where do we kind of find that balance down that side? Do we go for a bit more excitement of what we saw last night, or even McGree in that position? He will work back, but he's not so defensive minded. So do we need to allow for that position to allow Geordie Bos to get forward, or we just need to be a bit more free down that side?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting point, but I think it's the inside left centre back that's been caught out with pace. I don't think it's been, look, apart from probably the Craig Goodwin era, it's been the inside left centre back that's been beaten, and that's been Rolls Burgess a few times. Obviously, because they're bigger stature bodies and they're better in the air. And I think teams have tactically targeted that for the Socceroos, and it's definitely ball on the deck in behind that channel is definitely a weakness. It's just, what button you want to push with Bos, isn't it? But don't forget, Bos is a natural left back or natural left winger. So I'm sure if he was commanded to hold that position, I'm sure he will. It just, again, affects our transition going forward. But I think in the early stages, I'm sure he could sit. I think also too with the players that we have with Irankunda, you can see how much better he is when he's coming off someone. Velupile actually went up to the false nine last night and actually played at the higher point, which was probably a position that suits Velupile. I think he did it well against Indonesia, I think it was, in the World Cup qualifying. And I think when Irakunda's better, he's feeding off someone, isn't he? And I think when McGree and all the bosses, all that around, and takes attention off him and gets those one-on-ones in the channel. So I think it'd be a very strong move to stick with our best, because when you combined them last night for about 15, 20 minutes, you've seen the capability of what can be produced when they're all on the same pitch. Now, defensively, when you have the ball, you don't need to be defensive, do you? So, you see Spain and all that, their defense is keeping the ball. So if we've got players that keep the ball, that is defensively a good option as well. So I think ball possession is so important in that higher part of the pitch that I think it can counteract itself. So it's a really interesting point though, but I really think Irankunda in behind Toure and Bos on the left and McGree in behind is probably our best combination. Connor Metcalf's probably going to be the unlucky one, but I think we can rotate through the World Cup with him anyway because he's so versatile. But he definitely doesn't, for me, sit. He definitely plays better, Connor Metcalf, in that 10 as well, because when we played in those last two friendly, and I don't want to be too harsh because he hasn't really had much game time the last 6 to 8 weeks. When he was in that 8 or next to O'Neill, it didn't really work, did it? And he's much better in those advanced positions. But again, it offers us versatility against who we're playing.
Yeah, on Connor Metcalf as well. I remember those games against New Zealand where he was playing, those one of those wide 10 positions, and some of those balls he was being able to thread through when he was given a bit of space and turning and looking forward. I agree. I think that's his more preferred position. I know a lot won't agree with us on that point, but when he does get the space, he can do that. And then he's also got a bit of that defensive mind as well. So I think that's probably his better position. But it's going to be a tactical choice to play him, say, in front of a McGree, or it's going to be him coming on later in the game to secure something, or to try and get a result. So yeah, it should be very interesting how he plays that one out. But yeah, that midfield mix is going to be very interesting as we get closer to this World Cup squad selection. Let's go to our final opponents in the group, or who will be our first opponents in the group, because this morning Turkey beat Kosovo 1-0. So they're going to finish, they're going to come into our group in Group D alongside Paraguay and USA. So looking at Turkey through their qualifying, they finished second in Group E in UEFA behind Spain. So no mean feat to only lose out to Spain. They only had Georgia and Bulgaria elsewhere in their group, but obviously, yeah, they took it up to Spain and pushed them right to the end. So then they've had to go through the qualification path, but they're going to be a tricky opponent. And as I said the other night, I think it means that our group as a whole is going to be very tight.
Yeah, they can score some goals, Turkey, but they can concede some as well, and it's just that lack of discipline that the Turkish teams of present and past have. They kind of self-implode a little bit in moments, and we've got to try to exploit that. It's been a good campaign, like you said. They got a 2-2 draw against Spain, but pretty much Spain was already qualified by then when they played them, back then. So, but they got thumped by Spain 6-0 in the earlier one. So, look. I think Turkey are just like our other opponents. If you look at America, they're pretty much second tier to what Mexico. Mexico's been outstanding in that confederation, even beaten America in the CONCACAF Cup. And it's the same with Paraguay. They've been, they're not the elite, are they? But they're a good side. So I think we've got three good sides that aren't an elite level in that top 10, top 12, but are good enough still to play good football. But it's just like Australia Socceroos, isn't it? Like we're second best to Japan. I think you'll find these other three nations are probably second and third best in their own confederation. So it makes the group really interesting. But I really like the fact that the group's got a world ranking of 16 America, 22 Turkey, 40 Paraguay, and we're 27. It's going to make every game interesting. It's going to come right down the wire. Might even come down to goal difference, and because it's a very even standard group, and I don't think even with America being host, don't have the edge over any of the opponents, and I don't think any of these opponents have the edge over each other. We've seen, even Paraguay at 40, we struggle against South America. So is that out? But we play them last, so it's going to be very interesting how the group unfolds.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just looking through some of Turkey's results over the last 12 months. They beat the USA 2-1 in June last year, lost to Mexico 1-0, scraped past Georgia 3-2, got thumped by Spain 6-0. They then thumped Bulgaria 6-1, beat Georgia 4-1. They beat Bulgaria 2-0, had a 2-2 draw with Spain, but that probably needed to go in their favour in terms of a result to have any chance of qualifying first out of that group. And then their first World Cup qualification, a 1-0 win over Romania, and then obviously this morning 1-0 over Kosovo. So yeah, it's going to be very tricky for Australia, but as I said, I think it just tightens up the group, and every match is going to be so crucial. I'm not expecting any blowouts. There's going to be some tight games, and it's going to come down to tactical decisions and definitely some moments throughout those three games in the qualifying.
Yeah, it's going to be tense, and look, I think it's even Stevens, mate, and I think that this group is well up for grabs in every position, and it's going to probably unfold like that with the obviously the round of 32, obviously with the amount of teams that are in this competition. So it's going to be interesting to see if we do qualify in that top three, if we're one of the lucky thirds or seconds, whoever that might be, to see where it crosses over as well. It's going to be an extraordinary World Cup.
Absolutely, mate. Another team that's qualified this morning is Graham Arnold's Iraq. Fantastic 2-1 win for them. And yeah, they're through to the World Cup for the first time in 40 years. What an achievement for Graham Arnold. Where do you think that sits in the achievements of Australian coaches? Certainly outside of Socceroos, it's got to be right up there.
Oh, absolutely. He's on a pedestal now, isn't he? First Australian coach to coach an international team outside of Australia, take them to the World Cup. he started back in Northern Spirit, didn't he, as a player coach, Graham Arnold, before getting called up with Gus Hiddink, and he would have learned a lot there. And he's been an A-League champion 3 times, hasn't he, with Sydney and Central Coast. And, he's worked his way through the Socceroos there as an interim coach, and then back in 2018, 2024, the longest coach of the Socceroos, and with a great winning streak of 65%. So he's done it all. And then, probably after 6 years at international level, it's a long time, isn't it, these days? Probably just seen that it needed a change and a shift. And Iraq's picked him up, and what an experienced coach after coaching in Asia for so long, Graham Arnold, and seeing it all and having that World Cup experience where, he nearly had that near moment against Argentina, which we all seen. And I still think, his probably greatest achievements or games was in that Olympic campaign where they beat Argentina as well. Like, that was a really good Olympic campaign. He was up against some really good teams. Really showed his coaching nous in that one. And then gets to go over to Iraq and prove himself again and use all that valuable experience of all those years and really guide a really turbulent time for Iraq, isn't it? Because they're in a difficult position, needed FIFA to get the side out of Iraq to get them over there. And, there was the situation around it is just incredible. And he's galvanised that group, isn't he? And it's right up with Ange Postecoglou's European trophy, isn't it? And on an international level, it probably stands above everybody for the Socceroos, even Gus Hiddink, because he's really done it all. And he's done what no one's done and done it in another country at the biggest stage now. So it's just so proud moment, I think, and highlights again the Mark Milligans, the Kevin Muskets, how much ability coaching-wise, when given the opportunity, we really show what we've got, and we really suit some styles, don't we, over in Asia and Europe, and we're really testing the waters out there, and it's just great for Australian football to have these iconic coaches lead the way.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I believe that they're going to be part of the Group I, which is France, Norway, Senegal. So some pretty tough opponents for Iraq to face, but no doubt Arnie will get them right up for that one. Just thinking back about his experiences through World Cup playoffs, pretty certain he was part of that 1997 group as a player that were up 2-0 against Iran and ended up having a 2-2 draw to get knocked out. And then he's part of the coaching staff in 2005, as you said, under Gus Hiddink to knock out Uruguay and get through. And then, of course, he's in charge in 2021 or maybe it was even, no, it must have been 2022 when Andrew Redmayne saved the penalty against Peru to get Australia through to the World Cup. And now 2026, he's done the same for Iraq. So outside of that disappointment as a player in 1997, as a coach, he's had a very good record in these playoffs to make it to the World Cup.
Oh, he deserves it, doesn't he? Fantastic, leader of Australian football. He's seen it all, and he's just all those experiences just helped him out in these situations, hasn't it? And he just loves the game, and he's a great ambassador. And when he returns to Australia, we've just got to utilise his skills, don't we? And his knowledge, because these are icon coaches that are out there. It's just so good to see someone achieving it internationally, not just in the domestic game we've got, but now international. So we're really taking a step forward.
Yeah, I think like similar to what Postecoglou has done as a pioneer for coaches to forge their way overseas. This is a real opportunity for other coaches to look at international teams, and we have seen a little bit of it through some Southeast Asian nations as well. But this is probably, definitely the biggest achievement on the international stage for an Australian coach. Young Socceroos, mate, they've been in action with a series against China. You watched some of the highlights of this game. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it's an exciting group, isn't it? I thought the last under-20s was an exciting group, but this one looks just as talented. I tell you what, we're we're emerging some great young players. It's another, I think it's a Peace Cup or something, similar to what the Young Matildas did last year. And again, it's just good to get them exposure. Popovich talked about how important it is to get these young players exposed to high pressure games. And look, it's a start what we're doing over there. And to get this group together, we've seen a lot of players that are playing in Europe too join this camp, which is fantastic. And I just think the 4-2 win with a lot of young players in Australia as well is you've seen the rise of more football, and you're seeing this now progress to an international stage. And that's because the A-League are now very heavy reliant on young players to fill some of these positions. And we're bearing fruits for that at the younger levels.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And I've seen plenty of people along that same line of thinking, the fact that you're looking at the difference between some of the players in this squad that have been getting consistent game time and then some others that really haven't been being exposed at that level. So it definitely makes a big difference. And it's one of these benefits that we've spoken about before of the A-League promoting youth. And yes, that's because of the lack of finances, but looking at the silver lining of that, it is getting these kids on the biggest stages. And looking at the games just through the highlights, the actual stadium and the production of it, and it was a big spectacle. So a lot of these players would definitely have not played in atmospheres like this. So it's a great testing experience for them to go out and play this. There's one beautiful piece of football that one, I think it might have been the third goal that Australia scored, but some beautiful interplay and then a lovely ball. I think it was Quinn McNichol played the final ball, and yeah, just a brilliant chip over the keeper to finish it off. And it's the type of football that we've seen so much from Trevor Morgan's teams, and we hope that that continues, because that was an exciting under-20 group that we witnessed over the last couple of years, and it looks like, as you said, that this one may be just as good and maybe even more talent coming through, which is absolutely fantastic. I just wanted to point out quickly, I love the fact that Matthias McAllister steps up and takes that penalty in this game. We saw that horrible penalty he took as part of the Australia Cup this morning, and he's obviously a confident kid to be able to get up there and take a penalty in those kinds of situations again. And I'm just so pleased for him that it hasn't dented his confidence, and he's right back up there. It takes a lot of character in a player to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's all learning, isn't it? And yeah, look, you would have learned from that experience, and yeah, just got to get back on the horse, and you certainly put that away nicely. And yeah, look, it's promising times, and can't wait to see him in a real tournament once this one's over. The more exposure we give these kids, it's only going to be better. We've just got to get the highest level possible, because we've seen in the Under-20 World Cup, when we come up against those higher nations, we really need that experience against that top level. So well done to the boys. They look like, again, we've got a very promising Australian football platform coming through in the next 2 to 4 years.
Yep. And speaking of underage levels, the Young Matildas are in action this week, starting, we're recording this on the 1st of April, so they're starting on the 2nd of April tomorrow. Their first game in the women's under-20s Women's Asian Cup. First game is against Chinese Taipei, followed by India and then Japan. So those matches coming only 3 days apart. So that's going to be pretty quick turnarounds for those young ladies in that squad. Looks like the matches are going to be shown on Channel 10, which is fantastic for fans of Australian football that they get to witness this, and in good time slots too, at least on the East Coast. So 8 p.m. daylight time and then 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the second and third games as well. So, yeah, exciting to see this young group and what they can do. There's been a little bit of disappointment in some of the previous campaigns with the women's teams, and there's been some good results. So we'll see what this one rolls out. Definitely the first 2 games, you'd think that we should win, and then Japan's obviously going to be a really tough test in the third game.
Yeah, it's important to note too for all women's football fans that the Ninja finals is being obviously postponed for a couple of weeks to allow these young Matildas to play. Unfortunately, they'll miss the last round, but the finals will not start for another 3 weeks while this campaign's on, because there's a lot of Australian young Matildas there that are in the top 6 of the A-League Ninja side. So important to note that the finals won't start for another few weeks until this tournament finishes, sorry.
So we look forward to cheering the Young Matildas on, and we'll keep you posted for the results as they come through. Something a bit more local, mate. Looks like the sale of the Central Coast Mariners, obviously that license has been taken over by the APL for the moment, but looks like this sale for the Mariners is imminent. And by the reports coming out of Football 360, who picked up a story from Code Sports, could be a bit of a mix between Championship club QPR, which we know obviously has three of our Aussie boys on the books over there at the moment. And interesting that seems that the report suggests that they're in advanced talks QPR with the Holman Barnes Group, who of course are the owners of the West Tigers, or the majority owners of the West Tigers, because they want a local interest to be, watching over the team while they're in Australia. So that's a very interesting mix. And I'm very keen to get your thoughts. One of the final paragraphs is referencing the fact that the Tigers' current interim CEO, Sean Millercamp, who spent 9 years running the Mariners and played a key role in the club's extraordinary turnaround to win the A-League Championship in 2023. So no doubt Sean has a bit of interest in there, but it's an interesting, from both sides, I think, for the Holman Barnes Group to be interested in the A-League or the Mariners, and for the APL to be kind of dipping into that group as well.
Yeah, look, I think the positive is that QPR will obviously be the majority shareholder from what we believe. That'll be obviously verified. And it's a pathway. Like you said, 3 young Aussies there already. And there's no doubt QPR sees this as an investment as a talent pipeline, which is good for us because it allows investment in our game, which is what's needed. You've seen when we have the ownership of Auckland FC with Bournemouth owners and now the championship owners that the funding they provide and the stability really invest in the squad. This could see obviously too some loan players come back out too. So I think that would be a strong point. If you look at some of our boys, they've just been on the fringes and haven't had much first team football. Benny's probably the most that's had the most first team football for QPR, but potentially that could be a loan system as well. So there's a lot of football benefits from there. It's interesting. It makes complete sense, doesn't it, if you have an Australian interest in there running the football operations, but obviously QPR will oversee that. But again, positive, more investment, because the more ownership, more investment in the game for this club's only going to make it stronger. Interest from before, so previously Sean would know what's needed and required to be involved in A-League and run the club, especially financially. So that's a positive. Does it worry me that the rugby league's in town? No, I don't. That doesn't concern me personally. It might others who are more traditional in wanting a traditional process, but you've just got to understand where Central Coast are at. And really, they just need a vision. And I think QPR and the Tigers will obviously give them long-term stability. And I think that's what's most important. I don't care about the cross rivals because it's a business in the end. And if we can provide a club with stability rather than the uncertainty which the Mariners had for a long time, yeah, it's been to and fro and up and down. This will hopefully provide the community a club for the future and secure their long-term future and have interest in from Europe and obviously in Australia. So I think those ties together, I hope it works. I'm not sure of their leadership model, but I think any investment in the game that provides stability is going to be a bonus for the Mariners.
Yeah, just to confirm, it's not necessarily the Tigers that will have the interest in it. It is the Holman Barnes Group, who, looking just a quick Google search to cover kind of West Ashfield, Croydon Sports and Markets clubs and provide a wide variety of entertainment facilities. So it's just the majority owners of the West Tigers also showing an interest in another sport. So it's not like we haven't seen that kind of thing before. Some people might question the way that they have run the West Tigers over the years that they've been involved with them as well. But I think, look, I think the most important thing for the Mariners is the financial security. For the moment, it's something they've struggled with since inception, basically. And if they can get that through this ownership model between QPR and the Holman Barnes Group, if it is true based on the reports, but it seems like we're going to find out in the next week or so. So, look, it's exciting for Mariners fans to have that stability. There's just been run on the smell of an oily rag for far too long, and concerns of them even surviving seem to pop up every now and then. But hopefully, if these reports are true and this ownership model comes through, that stability will be there, which will be fantastic.
Yep, and you've seen the benefits of Auckland, and hopefully this will be the benefit of Central Coast, and they can now plan for the future once this is resolved. And they've still got a finals chance, so there's still light at the end of the tunnel for the fans too this year. And they've had a great year considering everything they've had to deal with. I'd almost put them as club of the year because of what they've had to deal with on and off the pitch. So for them to be in that position on the field, it's a credit to everyone that's remained at the ship and steadied it and really given the community something to cheer about, because it could have been a complete
Yeah, the
write-off.
men's team sit seventh, just one spot outside of the finals with a game in hand, and the women currently in sixth spot coming to the last round. So both of those teams have done very well this season under the circumstances that they've had to deal with. A couple of things from midweek, mate. We saw the semi-finals of the Coppa Italia for women. Roma played Inter Milan and got a 2-1 result, which means they're through to the final, obviously winning Heatley of Roma. And Juventus beat Fiorentina 2-1, and Annalise Rasmussen is on the books of Juventus. So we've got an all-Aussie Coppa Italia final, Mopper. How good is this?
Oh, mate, that's sensational, isn't it? We were on the trophy hunt already, aren't we?
Guaranteed
So
one.
what a great end there, and yeah, guaranteed one. And yeah, like we said last week too, with Ivy Lewick, obviously, and we'll play Haley Rosso's semi-final opponent in Europa League as well, with Ivy up 3-0. But yeah, look, we're chasing trophies and on the European stage, at the Cup stage, and yeah, look, it's all happening for Australian football.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, anything else that you wanted to cover over tonight?
Well, the A-League returns obviously tomorrow. We've got Macarthur versus the Jets. That'll be a massive game for Macarthur. Everyone will be watching that for the top six finals, and obviously the Jets for their title chances. And then, well, we've got Sydney FC's new coach starting on Thursday away to Brisbane, and this is probably last hurrah for Brisbane. If they don't win this one, they're going to be probably out of the finals contention. And Sydney FC are probably fighting Melbourne Victory for that probably second, would I say, Asian Champions League spot, because that's still up for grabs if Newcastle are going to take this title out. So there's some ramifications on both ends. And then we probably flick to the Aussies, the championship. It'll be interesting. Riley McGree's team, Middlesbrough, play Millwall in a tough game, and that's on Friday night Australian time, 10:30. So I'm not sure if Riley McGree will be able to get back in time for that one. He did play only a few minutes. I've seen that second game, but Millwall's coming fourth and Middlesbrough's coming second. So we know how tight that race is. And we said about Irakunda's side, well, Watford, they're ninth, and they've got a bit of work to do. They're 7 points off, but still in it, in what is a very dynamic championship. So plenty of football there. And don't forget, we've got FA Cup, Joe Gauci, quarterfinal against Chelsea. Can there be a major upset? Chelsea are vulnerable, mate, and this is on Sunday morning, at 2:15 Eastern Standard Time. Can we see another cup set with Port
Up the Vale. Come on, Joe. Come on, John Brady. Nah, they can do it,
That's
mate.
it.
They can do it. I wanted to point out as well that tomorrow morning may have already happened after you listen to us now, but Chelsea playing Arsenal in the second leg of the Women's Champions League quarterfinal. Arsenal currently 3-1 up. Obviously, the Matildas didn't get to play in the first leg of that one due to their Asian Cup commitments, but no doubt that they'll be part of that one. Sam Kerr found or continued her goal scoring form from the Asian Cup last time out for Chelsea in their big win as well. So that was fantastic to see. And then also the Europa Cup, that semi-final that you mentioned there before between BK Häcken and Eintracht Frankfurt. Second leg of that one, Ivy Lewick going up against Haley Razzo. See if Ribbons can get the turnaround in that one. So that would be a massive one. And then the A-League Women's final round before that little bit of a break for the final series. So there's some fascinating ties there, between Melbourne Victory and Central Coast Mariners, who can get that last spot in the finals, and then there's going to be a bit of movement throughout the final series. But yeah, back to club football this week after some international things. What about Italy not making the World Cup again, mate?
Yeah, I was very disappointed for the Italian fans. They suffered a three-peat, haven't they, in heartbreak. It's just tragic for you. Look how hard Europe is to qualify. I think Poland got knocked out as well this morning by Sweden. So, and then Sweden had a disaster of a campaign in the World Cup, but qualified due to obviously being the what was that National League or
Nations
whatever they
League,
would. They
yeah.
got a little bit of a bonus. Nations League, yeah. So, yeah, look, there's a lot of supporters and dual citizenships around those countries. So there'd be a lot of sorry, Italian fans for that one. But of a great story for Bosnia. You'd think going to penalties that probably one of the best goalkeepers in the world, could have stood up. But unfortunately, Bosnia, you just never know, do you? And they just sliced them through and bang, they're Bosnia in, and Italy. Where do you turn there after three World Cup failures? It's to be big questions asked in Italy this morning. They will be devastated.
Yeah, it's unfathomable, isn't it? Like after all that success that we saw, but it just shows that you can't stand still in this game. You got to keep moving forward. You got to keep developing young players, and yeah, they're a bit of a mess, aren't they? Like they've got close in a few of the qualifiers and different things, but outside of winning that 2021, I think 2020, 2021, around that COVID time Euros, they've done nothing over the past 8 to 10 years, have they? So yeah, it's really, you feel for the Italian fans and the passionate ones, but yeah, third straight World Cup that they're not going to. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, especially with the increased amount of teams, and yeah, we've seen some unbelievable stories, haven't we? With this new World Cup qualifying campaign over the last 18 months, 24 months. It's been a hell of a journey. You've seen Curucao, one of the smallest countries in the world, get through to a World Cup, and you've seen one of the most famous countries of World Cups, Italy, getting obviously knocked out. So it's a tale of two worlds when it's a world game, and yeah, even there's probably even more to come too, because obviously the Iran situation has to be sorted out from a World Cup point of view. So many fans will have to watch and how FIFA manages that one before we really finalise every team in this World Cup. But look, I can't wait. It's going to come quick, isn't it? It's only a few months away now. The show will be on, and what a cracking tournament this is going to be. And I tell you what, the heat's going to be astonishing over there, and it's going to be survival of the fittest. And I think that suits Australia well.
Yeah, I was talking about the drinks breaks last night during the Curucao game because I genuinely think they had nothing else to talk about in that first half when there was nothing much to watch. But yeah, they were talking about tactically how teams might use it. I think they were saying in that game against Mexico, I think that's at the Rose Bowl, that the drinks breaks are going to be part of that game as well. So be interesting to see how those teams use that drinks break tactically and what they can do during that time. So yeah, it'd be absolutely fascinating to see what happens there. Just wanted to quickly point out to your attention that we're back on in the Scotland Premiership, mate. So our Hearts take on Livingston, who are dead last. So let's hope that Hearts can get the job done. Celtic have, we say, a reasonably easy tie against Dundee FC, and Rangers play Dundee United. We'll see if our three boys at Dundee United can do Hearts a favour and knock a few points off Rangers. That would be very good to see.
Well, Dundee United, didn't they beat Celtic last couple of weeks before the international break? And look, what's it? Celtic got to go away to Dundee. So it's only 2 weeks to go before they break off, before the deciding 5 games. So you'd think Hearts would have an advantage, but every time I say that, I don't want to put the mocker on them because they've lost against the lower teams, Chief. They've beaten the top teams, but the lower teams. So it's all to play for, isn't it? And yeah, we'll look. Cammy Devlin's back fit. Hopefully, he can get a good run in before World Cup selection. But I think Popovic has already made up his mind. I think we've got a core group going, and I think there'll only be one or two questions. And I hope to see Devlin, obviously after he lifts the Scottish Premiership, join them. But he hasn't had much game time for the Socceroos over the last 12 months. But domestically in Scotland's had big raps, and I think they were even stating as the player of the year over there at one stage. That's how highly he was regarded before that injury.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing him back on the pitch for sure. In the championship, there's a couple of interesting games. You pointed out Borough versus Millwall. We're also going to see Norwich take on Portsmouth. So we want to see Moture back, hopefully, even if it's off the bench. But massive game for Portsmouth as well. They're right down in that trouble. QPR and Watford. Watford on a good run before the international break. See if they can keep pushing their case for the finals as well. So, and then Derby. I'm not sure if Callum Elder will be back as yet, but they've got a tough trip away to Coventry.
Yeah, Moturo was 4 to 6 weeks out. His injury was in late Feb, so yeah, he'd be very, very close. No update yet, but let's see if he returns anytime. We'll definitely be back in the next 1 or 2 weeks, and after his flying start. So yeah, lots to look forward to in the championship as well. There's lots of Aussies. The Cam Eldo, who hopefully he'll be back soon as well. So it's all happening with only really 4 to 6 weeks to go, isn't it, for all the big championships, and we're in a bit of everything, aren't we? McGree's up at the top with Borough, trying to hold on to automatic promotion. Watford, Derby are trying to get in those playoffs, and then you got down the bottom where Portsmouth are trying to survive. We've got a string of Aussies there, so yeah, Portsmouth have been in a bit of a free fall. So it'd be interesting if the international break did them well to rebound against Moturo's Norwich.
2 games over the weekend too. Looks like they're kind of backing up between Friday and all the way to Tuesday. Pretty much everyone's playing 2 games. So there's a really big one for Portsmouth.
That's nothing unusual.
That's true.
Yeah, nothing unusual
well,
there,
Pompey,
is it? I think
after Pompey play Norwich, they've actually got Oxford, which is a massive 6-pointer because Oxford's just behind them in the relegation zone. So yeah, big ramifications.
Yeah, and Leicester's picked up some points lately. So after their points, deduction, I think it was about 12 points. I think they got deducted. They wouldn't be in that situation if it wasn't for that financial irregularities. But yeah, there's still a lot of people in it. Even Blackburn's not safe yet either. So hopefully for Lewis Miller's team, they can get away too. But geez, there's always drama, isn't there, in the championship at the top, bottom, and the playoffs. So it's like Scotland. There's a lot to play for.
It's all happening, mate. Yeah, all right. Well, that's a wrap on International Week. It's been good to see the Socceroos. Definitely frustrating at times, but it's good to see some highlights in that and good to see some different faces in the squad just to see what they're all about. But yeah, we're going to build up, obviously, to this World Cup squad selection, which we're probably going to expect in probably I'd say mid to late May. Not sure when the exact dates are when that gets announced, but plenty to think about for Tony Popovic and his staff in the meantime.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's look, is there anyone, Chief, that you think hasn't been around that is still a chance?
I don't think that anyone who hasn't been called up by Tony Popovic will be called up now. I just don't think it's realistic, and I think this was the window to call them up if they're going to. So I think in the likes of, Garan Quo or a Sapsford, I just can't see them being pulled up last minute. They would have to do something absolutely extraordinary in the back end of the season to even be considered, or there'd have to be some massive injuries, and touch wood that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Mexico's our next friendly on the 30th of May, and that's when the cutoff is for FIFA, Chief, 30th of May as well for the 26-man squad. So very interesting. Obviously, we'll be taking the squad to play Mexico, and that'll probably be the World Cup squad that we pick and submit in that time.
Yeah, sounds good, mate. All right, that might do us for tonight, mate. Thanks for your time. Thanks to everyone for listening. We'll be back on Sunday to record as usual. In the meantime, enjoy your football.
All the best, everyone.